My brother drained our joint account. While I was working overtime to save for Mom's treatment, so I took the business and left him in debt. I've always been the dependable one, the kid who fixed what everyone else broke. The one who showed up, no matter how tired, because someone had to keep things together. I'm 29 now, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that responsibility can be both a blessing and a curse. My mom's health started declining about 3 years ago. Nothing sudden, just a slow, cruel fade. Her heart needed constant medication, and the doctors warned us she'd eventually need a major procedure. That's when I promised myself I'd make sure she got it, no matter the cost. My younger brother, Ryan, is 26, the kind of guy everyone likes instantly. Charming, funny, always just figuring things out. When Dad passed away and left us his old repair shop, we decided to run it together. Or at least that was the plan. I handled the books, orders, payroll, all the behind-the-scenes stuff no one notices until it goes wrong. Ryan was the face, laughing with customers, posting selfies in the workshop, acting like he was the backbone of it all. Most nights I'd close the shop alone. The sound of tools clinking and the low hum of the old fan were my only company. My hands were cracked from grease and my clothes reeked of metal and sweat, but I told myself it was worth it. Every extra hour meant another payment toward Mom's treatment. I picked up overtime at a nearby auto plant just to keep the savings steady. Ryan would stroll in late, sometimes smelling like alcohol, sometimes with lipstick on his shirt, joking, "Relax, bro. Life's too short to stress." I'd just nod, counting the cash register for the third time, trying to ignore the imbalance between us. Back then, I still believed love and loyalty were enough to keep a family strong, but I had no idea that belief was about to destroy everything I'd built. The weeks blurred into one long stretch of exhaustion. Every morning I'd leave before sunrise, hit my shift at the auto plant, and then head straight to the shop until late evening. My hands ached, my back screamed, and some nights I'd fall asleep still wearing my work boots. But every time I looked at Mom's fragile smile, her trying to pretend she wasn't in pain, it reminded me why I was doing all this. Ryan, meanwhile, seemed to be living in another world entirely. He'd roll into the shop halfway through the day, complaining about hangovers or saying he was networking with potential clients. Most of those so-called clients were women he met at bars. He had that natural charm that made people forgive him too easily, even Mom. She always said, "Ryan just needs time to mature, sweetheart. You've always been his rock." I didn't argue. Instead, I took on more work. The hospital had given us a date for Mom's surgery, about 6 weeks away, and I was determined to have every penny ready. That's when Ryan suggested something I'd later regret. He leaned against the counter one night, phone in hand, grinning. "Bro, managing all this money's getting messy. Why don't we open a joint account for the business and Mom's expenses? That way we both can handle payments easily." I hesitated. Sharing finances felt risky, but he made it sound reasonable, like a real partnership. "You sure you'll be responsible with it?" I asked. Ryan smirked, hand over his heart. "Scout's honor, man. We're in this together." So I agreed. We set it up the next day. I even gave him access to my savings since it was all going toward Mom's operation anyway. It felt like the right thing to do. But a small voice inside me whispered something I didn't want to hear. That trust, that decision, would soon cost me everything. It started small, the kind of thing you could easily dismiss if you wanted to. One night, after another brutal double shift, I logged into our joint account to make sure we were on track for Mom's surgery payment. I remember rubbing my eyes, thinking I was reading it wrong. Several withdrawals, random amounts, all labeled cash. Not huge, but enough to make me uneasy. The next morning, I asked Ryan about it. He didn't even look up from his phone. "Relax, bro. I paid a couple of vendors who don't take transfers. All good." His tone was too casual, like it was nothing. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. The idea that he'd misused the money meant for Mom made me sick to even consider. But over the next few days, more vendor payments showed up. Then I overheard one of our regulars at the shop, an old guy named Dave, joking, "Heard your brother's living large, huh? New phone, new sneakers must be good business." My stomach twisted. That night I confronted Ryan again. "Tell me straight, are you using Mom's money?" He rolled his eyes. "Wow, really? You think I'd do that? You're paranoid, man. I'm busting my ass here too, you know." His voice grew defensive, then softer. "Look, I get it. You're stressed. But don't turn this into drama. We're family. and just like that, he flipped it. Made me feel guilty for even asking. I mumbled an apology, even though I wasn't the one who'd done anything wrong. Still, I couldn't sleep that night. The sound of the clock ticking felt louder than usual, like it was mocking me for trusting him. I told myself I'd keep a closer eye on things from now on. But what I didn't realize was that Ryan had already crossed a line he had no intention of coming back from. After that argument, things went quiet, almost too quiet. Ryan started showing up on time again, acting extra helpful, cracking jokes with customers, even bringing Mom her favorite pastries after work. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd been too harsh, that guilt had gotten to him and he was trying to make things right. I wanted to believe that version of my brother so badly that I ignored the voice in my head warning me otherwise. The shop seemed steady again. Business was picking up and customers appreciated our work. Ryan had a way of charming people, the kind of effortless charisma I'd never had. But I started noticing things that didn't add up. Tools would go missing, new boxes of materials would arrive that I hadn't ordered, and receipts would disappear from the drawer where I kept our records. Every time I asked, Ryan would laugh it off. "Man, you stress over everything. Chill, we're doing great." Meanwhile, Mom's health was getting worse. Her hands trembled when she held her tea, and her breathing grew shallow on cold nights. I'd sit beside her bed, adjusting her blanket, whispering, "Just a little longer, Mom. We're almost there." She'd smile weakly and say, "You and Ryan. Your father would be proud." That line hurt every time. Dad had built the shop from nothing, and I was terrified of failing him. So I worked harder. I picked up an extra weekend shift at the factory and told Ryan to handle the finances and daily sales for a while. "I trust you," I said, meaning it, or maybe hoping that if I said it enough, it would make it true. But sometimes silence doesn't mean peace. It's just the sound right before something breaks, and I was about to hear that break louder than ever. It was a Tuesday morning when everything came crashing down. I was at the auto plant, midway through my shift, when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it, until I heard the voice on the other end. "Mr. Carter, this is St. Luke's Hospital. We're calling about your mother's surgery deposit. It hasn't cleared yet, and we'll have to postpone if payment isn't made today." For a few seconds, I couldn't even process what she'd said. "What do you mean it hasn't cleared?" "I transferred that money last week," she double-checked. "The account came back insufficient. You might want to contact your bank." My stomach dropped. I clocked out early and drove straight to the bank, hands shaking on the wheel. The teller looked uncomfortable as she pulled up the account. "I'm sorry, sir, but there's only $47 left, $47. Out of the thousands I'd saved. Gone. Vanished." I scrolled through the transactions, and there it was. Multiple transfers to Ryan's personal account over the last month. I felt the air leave my lungs. When I got to the shop, Ryan was there, leaning against the counter, laughing on the phone. I didn't even wait for him to hang up. "Where's the money, Ryan?" He froze. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb. The hospital just called." "You drained everything." He smirked, actually smirked, and shrugged. "You think I owe you for Mom?" "I'm part of this family too." "You don't own her. You stole from her," I shouted, my voice cracking. Ryan's expression darkened. "Oh, grow up. You've been acting like Dad's ghost made you king of this family. It's time I took my share." For the first time in my life, I looked at my brother and saw a stranger. And in that moment, I knew our family would never be the same again. The day after our confrontation, I barely slept. Every corner of the house felt heavy, like the walls themselves knew what Ryan had done. I kept replaying it in my head, his smug face, his words echoing, "It's time I took my share." I thought I'd hit my limit, but life wasn't finished with me yet. That night, Mom collapsed. I heard the crash from her room, the sound of glass shattering followed by a thud that made my heart stop. I ran in to find her on the floor, gasping for air, her skin pale as paper. I called 911, my hands trembling so hard I could barely dial. At the hospital, the doctors said her heart had weakened faster than expected. She needed the surgery immediately. I explained that I'd already paid, that the money was gone, stolen. The nurse gave me a look of pity that burned like acid. "We can admit her under emergency care, but the cost will fall entirely on you." So I did the only thing I could. I emptied what little I had left in my personal account and signed every form they gave me. By the time I got home, the sun was rising and Ryan still hadn't shown up. His phone went straight to voicemail. Later that day, I went to the shop hoping to find him, but instead I found papers. Loan papers tucked into a drawer with my signature forged at the bottom. A business loan, tens of thousands of dollars taken in our company's name. I stood there in shock, my chest pounding so hard it hurt. Ryan hadn't just stolen the savings, he'd taken our entire future and signed me up for the fallout. That was the moment I stopped being his brother and started becoming his reckoning. The next few weeks felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The loan company started calling daily, demanding payment. When I told them about the forged signature, they said I'd need to prove it in court. In the meantime, I was still listed as co-owner, meaning I was on the hook. Every ring of my phone made my stomach twist. At the same time, the shop was falling apart. Vendors stopped supplying us when invoices went unpaid. Customers stopped coming once they heard rumors that we were closing. The place my father built, the one place that still smelled like him, still held his handprints on every tool rack, was collapsing under the weight of my brother's lies. And Mom, she was recovering but weak. I lied to her every day. The business is fine, Mom. Ryan's just taking a little break. I couldn't bring myself to tell her that her youngest son had burned everything we worked for. She'd already lost Dad. She didn't deserve to lose faith in both her sons. One night, after another call from debt collectors, I went down to the shop alone. The lights buzzed faintly, flickering over the dusty floor. I sat on the stool by Dad's old workbench, running my hand across the worn wood. There were tiny marks, initials he'd carved with a pocket knife when I was a kid. "Someday this will all be yours," he used to say. That memory broke me. For the first time in years, I cried. Not quietly, but with the kind of grief that makes your body shake. I had nothing left. No money, no trust. No peace, I whispered into the silence. I can't lose this too, Dad. And that's when I realized, if I wanted to keep anything, I had to stop being the one who forgave. I had to become the one who fought back. After that night in the shop, something inside me changed. The grief didn't vanish. It hardened into resolve. I stopped waiting for Ryan to fix anything and started protecting what little I still had left. The next morning, I gathered every document I could find. Bank statements, loan papers, receipts, even texts between us. I spent hours at the dining table, highlighting every forged signature, every inconsistency. The anger that once felt like poison now became fuel. I reached out to an old friend of Dad's, Mr. Hayes, a retired lawyer who used to handle small business disputes for local shops. When I showed him the papers, his expression went from disbelief to quiet fury. "He forged this? Your own brother?" he muttered. He helped me file a motion to freeze the business account and start a legal claim to separate ownership. It wasn't easy, but it was the first time I felt like I was taking control again. In the meantime, I quietly registered a new business license, a small repair workshop under my father's name, Carter & Son Restorations. It felt right. A tribute, not just a restart. I rented a cheap corner unit near the old industrial district and started working on my own. The customers who still trusted me, the ones who knew my work ethic, began showing up again. I didn't announce anything publicly. No confrontation, no revenge speech. I just built, slowly, silently. Ryan was too busy pretending nothing had changed, posting photos, hanging with friends, flashing money that wasn't his. He didn't realize I was quietly pulling every wire that held him up. By the time he noticed, it would already be too late. It didn't take long for the cracks in Ryan's fantasy to start showing. The loan company began sending letters, not to me this time, but directly to him. I'd made sure the authorities had everything, the forged documents, the timestamps, the signatures. They traced the transfers and confirmed what I already knew. The money trail led straight to Ryan. At first, he brushed it off. "They're bluffing," he told a mutual friend. "It's all in my brother's name anyway." But when the collectors showed up at the old shop demanding payment, that confidence started to crumble. He called me, panicked for the first time. "You need to help me, man. They're freezing the business account." I stayed calm. "That's not our business anymore, Ryan. You made it yours when you stole from me. And from Mom." The silence that followed was thick. Then came the shouting, the threats, the desperate apologies. I didn't respond. Soon the town started talking. Vendors wanted their money back. Customers who'd once laughed with him now crossed the street to avoid him. Even Mom started hearing whispers from friends who'd stopped by the shop. "Ryan's gotten into some trouble," they said gently, not knowing the half of it. When the foreclosure notice hit the door of the old shop, Ryan finally showed up at my new place, Carter and Son Restorations, his face pale and voice shaking. "You took everything from me," he spat. I looked him dead in the eye. "No, Ryan. You took everything from yourself." That's when it hit him. The customers filling my shop. The hum of business running smoothly without him. The sign bearing Dad's name instead of ours, and for the first time in his life, Ryan looked small. Not angry, not smug, just lost, but I wasn't done yet. Justice was still unfolding, and the final blow hadn't landed. It was late afternoon when Ryan finally stormed into my new shop. I heard the door slam before I even looked up. He was furious, eyes bloodshot, face red, and voice shaking with rage. "You think you can just steal the business from me?" he shouted, slamming his fist on the counter. My employees froze. I calmly set down my wrench and wiped my hands on a rag. "Steal?" I said quietly. "You forged my signature, emptied our account, and nearly cost Mom her life." "I didn't steal anything, Ryan. I just cleaned up your mess." He laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You're so self-righteous. You always thought you were better than me, Dad's favorite, Mom's hero. You couldn't stand seeing me finally succeed." I stepped closer, my voice low but steady. "Succeed? You call stealing and lying success? You call draining Mom's surgery fund winning?" He started pacing, running a hand through his hair. "You can't prove anything." That's when I reached under the counter and pulled out a folder. Every document Mr. Hayes had helped me gather. I laid them out one by one. Bank transfers, loan statements, the legal notice officially naming me sole proprietor of Carter and Son Restorations. Ryan's face fell. He grabbed a paper, reading it with trembling hands. "You can't do this." I already did. For a moment, silence filled the room. Even the hum of the tools seemed to stop. Behind him, Mom stood in the doorway. She'd come in quietly, leaning on her cane, eyes wet with tears. "Ryan," she whispered, voice breaking. "How could you do this to your brother?" "To me?" Ryan's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. He just turned, shoulders slumped, and walked out, the sound of the bell above the door marking the quiet end of an era. But I knew this wasn't truly over. The world still had one more lesson waiting for him. In the weeks after that confrontation, everything started unraveling for Ryan. The loan company officially pressed charges for fraud. The vendors he'd swindled filed complaints too. His bank accounts were frozen, his car repossessed, and the shop he once bragged about owning was now just an empty, padlocked shell. For years, I had watched him escape consequences, charm his way out of every mistake. But this time, there was nowhere left to run. He showed up one evening outside Mom's house, standing by the porch light like a ghost. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes hollow. I didn't even recognize him at first. When I stepped outside, he whispered, "I didn't mean for it to go that far. I just wanted something of my own." His voice cracked. "You always had everything." That line hit me harder than I expected. I thought about it for a long time. Maybe in his twisted way, he truly believed that my hard work and sacrifices were somehow everything. But I couldn't pity him anymore. Not after what he did. "Ryan," I said quietly, "you could have had everything with me."
"You chose to take it from me."
Mom came out then, leaning on the railing. When he asked her for help, for money, for forgiveness, she just shook her head. "You've got to face what you've done, sweetheart. I can't save you this time." He looked between us, eyes glassy, then turned and walked away. I watched him disappear into the dark, not with anger, but with a strange, heavy calm. For the first time in years, the weight on my chest felt lighter. Justice wasn't loud or vengeful. It was quiet, slow, inevitably fair, and as I locked the door behind me, I realized I didn't need revenge anymore. I already had peace. Months passed and life finally found its rhythm again. The new shop, Carter and Son Restorations, began thriving beyond anything I imagined. The same customers who once doubted I'd recover were now regulars, bringing their friends, recommending us online. Every time I walked in and saw the sign with Dad's name gleaming above the door, I felt a quiet pride that words couldn't describe. It wasn't just a business anymore, it was survival turned into legacy. Mom recovered better than the doctors expected.
She came by the shop often, sitting on a small stool in the corner.
Watching me work just like she used to watch Dad. She'd smile and say, "You brought this family back together even after it fell apart." I'd always correct her gently. "No, Mom, I just stopped letting it fall on me." As for Ryan, the last I heard, he'd left town. Word spread that he was doing odd jobs to pay off the debts he still owed. A few people pitied him. Some even asked if I'd ever forgive him. The truth? I don't think forgiveness is something I owe him anymore. I've learned that peace isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about no longer letting it define you. Sometimes, I drive past the old shop, the one he ruined, and I see the foreclosure sign still hanging, the windows dusty and empty. It's strange how quickly a place dies when there's no soul left in it. I don't hate Ryan. I don't wish him pain. I just hope he finally understands what it feels like to rebuild something you destroyed. Because that's what life made me do. And every time I turn off the lights in my new shop, hearing the echo of tools settling in the quiet, I whisper the same words I did that night in the dark. Dad, I didn't lose it. I rebuilt it.